Picture yourself standing in an open field in the middle of the night. Far away, a small fire flickers in the darkness. The air is so cold that your breath forms little clouds in front of you. There's no house nearby, no blanket, no heater, just you, the darkness, and a body that doesn't seem built for this kind of weather. And here's the strangest part. You have no fur. The deer that you might hunt has fur. The wolf has fur. Monkeys, gorillas, and chimpanzees are all wrapped in thick hair. Even the smallest creatures around you, the foxes, the rabbits, the things rustling in the dark, all of them came with a built-in coat. Something that keeps them alive without them ever having to think about it. But you? Your skin is taking the cold wind head-on. No coat, no layer, nothing standing between you and the night. And that's where a question comes up that sounds simple at first. Why did ancient humans start wearing clothes? Was it because of shame? Did someone look down at their own body one day and think, okay, I probably need to put something on? Or was the real story something else entirely? And trust me, the answer is far stranger than you'd expect. Because clothes came before fashion, they came before shame, and they might be one of the most important inventions in human history. In fact, clothing was the solution to a biological problem that humans had created for themselves. A problem we walked into with our eyes wide open, without realizing it, over hundreds of thousands of years, because we are one of the strangest primates on Earth. Scientists sometimes call us the naked ape. That name isn't far off. Our closest relatives are chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans. All of them are covered in thick hair from head to toe, built-in protection against sun, cold, insects, and scrapes. But somewhere along the way, our ancestors lost most of theirs. Not all of it. Just enough to leave us standing out like the one animal in the forest who forgot to get dressed. Why? Good question. Researchers think that as our ancestors started living on the open plains of Africa, the biggest challenge in their lives wasn't the cold, it was the heat. Picture endless grasslands, sun beating down for hours, no shade for miles, and a body that needed to move, hunt, and survive in that heat day after day. Humanity's greatest superpower probably isn't strength or speed, it's sweat. We're some of the best endurance runners on the planet. And honestly, if you raced a dog, it might just look at you and laugh, then casually trot past you without breaking a sweat. Literally because dogs barely sweat at all. But there's one thing we're really good at. We don't stop. Anthropologists believe early humans would sometimes chase prey for hours. Running, walking, running again. Not fast, not dramatic, just relentless. Step after step, hour after hour, under a sun that never seemed to move. Until the animal finally collapsed from heat and exhaustion. Its body overheating, its muscles giving out, while the humans following it just kept going, sweating the whole time, barely even tired. Having less hair allowed sweat to evaporate off the skin quickly, which kept the body cool even during long chases in extreme heat. So having less hair actually became an advantage. It let heat escape. It let sweat do its job. It turned the human body into one of the most efficient cooling machines nature has ever built. But then a new problem showed up. Because evolution doesn't come with an undo button. It doesn't pause, look around, and say, hold on, where are these humans going now? Let me adjust their bodies accordingly. It just keeps moving forward, slowly. Generation by generation, locked into whatever direction it's already heading. When humans left Africa and started moving into the colder regions of Europe and Asia, that same hairless body that used to be an advantage suddenly became a serious problem. Imagine this. Your body was built for the heat of Africa. Built for sweating, for open skies, for sun. And suddenly, you're standing in snow. Wind cutting across an open landscape with nothing to block it. Ice forming on rivers. Nights that last far longer than days. Your body is saying, I'm built for long-distance running. And the weather replies, great, here's minus 20 degrees. There was no negotiating with that. No adapting overnight. The body that had been perfected for African heat was now standing in conditions it was never designed to survive. Something had to change. And that's where the real story of clothing begins. Not as fashion, as survival. The first clothes were nothing like the clothes we know today. There were no brands, no fashion shows, no mirrors, no seasonal collections. And no one wrapped in mammoth hide was wondering, does this color suit me? Instead, picture something much rougher. A piece of animal skin, still rigid, maybe still smelling faintly of the animal it came from, wrapped around the shoulders and tied with a strip of sinew. Not stitched, not shaped, just wrapped, tightly enough to trap a little bit of warmth against the body. Humans started wrapping animal skins and fur around themselves. This protected them from wind, from rain. Git helped them survive the winters. It also meant they could sit closer to the ground, sleep on cold earth without losing all their body heat overnight, and move through freezing mornings without their fingers and toes going numb within minutes. In a way, it was artificial fur. Nature had handed our ancestors a cooling system perfect for the savanna, then left them standing in the snow with nothing. So they improvised. They took the fur off other animals and put it on themselves. Instead of waiting for evolution to grow thicker hair again, humans simply made their own. And that one invention may have changed the entire course of human history, because without clothing, humans could never have survived Ice Age Europe. The winters there weren't just cold. They were the kind of cold that can kill an exposed body in a matter of hours. Could never have reached Siberia, where temperatures regularly dropped far below anything the human body could handle on its own. Could never have settled in places where millions of people now live, build cities, raise families, and complain about how cold it is outside while wearing 3 layers and complaining anyway. The evidence for this story doesn't come from clothes. It comes from lice. Yes, lice. And this might be the weirdest part of the whole story, because here's the problem scientists ran into. Animal skins rot, fur breaks down, plant fibers disappear within decades, let alone tens of thousands of years. By the time anyone started digging through the ground looking for clues, the clothes themselves were long gone, turned to dust, leaving behind nothing but empty space where they used to be. So how do you study something that no longer exists? Scientists discovered that body lice only live in clothing. They don't live in hair, they don't live directly on skin. They live in the folds and seams of fabric and fur, close enough to the body to feed, but only able to survive if there's something to hide in. Which means body lice couldn't have existed until clothing existed. No clothing, no hiding place, no body lice. It's that simple. DNA studies suggest that body lice split from head lice around 170,000 years ago. At some point, a population of lice that used to live only in human hair found a brand new habitat opening up. Layers of animal skin and fur wrapped around human bodies, and slowly evolved to live there instead, which means humans may have started wearing clothes around that time, maybe even earlier. Think about that. The clothes themselves disintegrated into dust long ago, but the lice that lived in them preserved the story, hidden in their DNA, waiting for someone, tens of thousands of years later, to come along with a microscope and figure out what they were looking at. Sometimes history hides its secrets in the strangest places. Because once humans solved the problem of staying warm, clothing stopped being just clothing. It became a message. At first, the message was simple. I am warm. I am protected. I survived another winter. But slowly something else started happening. Who are you? Which tribe do you belong to? What's your status? Are you rich or poor? A piece of fur that was once just insulation could now say something about the person wearing it. Maybe it came from a difficult, dangerous hunt. Maybe it was rare. Maybe only certain people in the group were allowed to wear it. Slowly, clothing became identity. It became status. And then something else happened. Something that was originally just about staying warm started becoming connected to shame and modesty. Covering the body stopped being only about temperature and started becoming about how a person was seen, judged, and accepted by the people around them. But did this happen in every human society? Not at all. There were tribes living in warm climates who wore very little clothing and lived perfectly healthy lives, generation after generation, with no issues at all. For them, clothing wasn't necessary. The environment simply didn't demand it. Because clothing was never a universal upgrade. It was an adaptation. Where it was cold, there were clothes, layers, furs, wrappings, anything to trap heat against the body. Where it was warm, there was no need for them. The body could regulate itself just fine without an extra layer getting in the way. Human culture doesn't usually come from philosophy. It comes from necessity. Something starts as a solution to a very real, very physical problem. Staying warm, staying alive, surviving one more winter. And over time, that necessity turns into tradition. The reason gets forgotten, but the behavior stays. People keep doing it, generation after generation, long after anyone remembers exactly why it started. So tomorrow morning, when you put on a t-shirt or a hoodie without even thinking about it, not even pausing for a second, just grabbing whatever's closest and pulling it over your head. Remember this, you're not just wearing clothes. You're wearing a 200,000-year-old survival technology, a technology that helped our ancestors survive the cold without giving up. That let them walk into landscapes their bodies were never built for and somehow stay alive long enough to pass that solution down, generation after generation, all the way to you. Because when nature didn't give them fur, they made their own. And maybe that's what truly separates humans from every other creature. We don't always adapt ourselves to the world. Sometimes we rewrite the rules of the world itself.